The Devil's Playground. The air hung heavy with an ominous stillness as Mark and his friends, Sarah and Jake, stood before the rusted gates of the long forgotten amusement park. The entrance, once adorned with vibrant colors and cheerful decorations, now exuded an eerie desolation. The sign that once proudly proclaimed, "Welcome to Wonderland," had been weathered by time, the letters now barely discernible. The trio had heard whispers about the abandoned amusement park, a place that locals spoke of only in hushed tones. Legend had it that the park had been shut down decades ago after a series of mysterious accidents and unexplained disappearances. No one dared to venture near it, except for the bravest souls seeking an adrenaline rush from the supernatural. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and writhe like malevolent spirits. Mark, the instigator of the adventure, felt a chill crawl up his spine, but pushed it aside with nervous laughter. "Come on, guys, it's just an old park. What's the worst that could happen?" With trepidation, they pushed open the creaking gates, which protested loudly against their intrusion. The deserted park revealed itself like a ghostly carnival frozen in time. The once vibrant carousel now stood lifeless, its painted horses gazing emptily into the abyss. The Ferris wheel, a skeletal structure against the darkening sky, groaned as if mourning the laughter it once carried. As the trio wandered through the decaying remnants of Wonderland, strange whispers echoed through the air, too indistinct to decipher. Shadows danced along the edges of their vision, teasing them with a presence just out of reach. The air grew thick with anticipation, and unease settled in their stomachs like an unwelcomed guest. Mark's flashlight flickered, casting sporadic beams that illuminated only fragments of the desolate landscape. Sarah gasped as she saw a silhouette dart behind a dilapidated ticket booth. "Did you guys see that?" she stammered, her eyes wide with fear. Uneasy glances were exchanged, but Jake, attempting to mask his own anxiety, scoffed. "It's just your imagination playing tricks on us. Let's keep moving." As they reached the heart of the park, an abandoned funhouse loomed before them. The faded facade depicted grinning clowns and distorted mirrors, distorted by time into grotesque figures. Hesitant, they entered the creaking structure, its dark corridors swallowing them whole. Inside, the air was suffocating, and the eerie silence was shattered by the distant sound of a child's laughter. The trio exchanged horrified glances, realizing there was no child in sight. Panic set in as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, the distorted mirrors reflecting twisted versions of themselves. Suddenly, a chilling voice echoed through the halls, whispering promises of doom. The walls seemed to close in on them, and the laughter intensified, now more sinister than playful. Each step became a struggle against an invisible force, pulling them deeper into the devil's playground. As they stumbled out of the funhouse, disoriented and terrified, the amusement park seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. The once dormant rides creaked and groaned as if awakening from a long slumber. Shadows gathered, converging on the trio like vengeful specters. With a final blood curdling scream, the gates slammed shut behind them, trapping Mark, Sarah, and Jake in the sinister embrace of the devil's playground. The legends had warned of the price of curiosity, and now they would have to face the horrors that lurked within the forsaken amusement park. Desperation clawed at their hearts as the realization set in. They were no longer alone in the decaying amusement park. The shadows, once mere whispers in the wind, now materialized into grotesque shapes that slithered along the cracked pavement. Unearthly laughter echoed from every corner, mocking their feeble attempts to escape. Mark fumbled with his flashlight, the beam dancing nervously across the demonic carnival. The Ferris wheel, which had stood as a silent sentinel, now rotated with an otherworldly creak, its rusted joints protesting against the unnatural movement. The carousel stirred, its spectral horses beginning a macabre dance, as if animated by unseen hands. In the distance, the funhouse doors slammed shut with a reverberating boom, sealing their fate. Panic set in, and the trio sprinted towards the exit, only to find it barred by a twisted wrought iron gate that had seemingly materialized out of thin air. A low guttural growl echoed through the night, freezing them in their tracks. The shadows congealed into a nightmarish figure, a towering spectral clown with hollow eyes that seemed to penetrate their very souls. Its laughter reverberated in the air, sending shivers down their spines. Welcome to my playground, the clown's voice dripped with malevolence, each word etched into their minds like a curse. You trespassed where you should not have, and now you shall entertain me for eternity. The amusement park came alive with the surreal horror as the rides were to life, their mechanisms grinding against decades of neglect. The trio stumbled backward, their eyes darting around in search of an escape route that seemed to vanish with each desperate gaze. Without warning, the Ferris wheel seat swung violently, and the carousel spun faster, its spectral horses neighing in agony. The laughter of the demonic clown grew louder, drowning out their terrified screams. In a final act of desperation, Mark, Sarah, and Jake sprinted towards the dilapidated roller coaster, hoping to find some semblance of safety atop its rickety tracks. As they ascended, the air became thick with a malevolent force, and the ground trembled beneath them. At the coaster's peak, the trio found themselves suspended in a moment of horrifying silence. The devil's playground stretched before them like a demonic tapestry, the nightmarish carnival of the damned. The spectral clown appeared below, its grin widening as it prepared to claim its victims. Just as the trio braced for the inevitable, a blinding light enveloped them. The demonic laughter turned to anguished wails, and the once living nightmare of the amusement park crumbled into a surreal void. The trio found themselves standing at the park's entrance, the gate now invitingly ajar. The malevolent force had vanished, now leaving the distant echoes of tormented laughter. Shaken and breathless, Mark, Sarah, and Jake stumbled out of the devil's playground, forever haunted by the surreal horrors that lurk within the abandoned amusement park. The legends had proven true. Those who dared to explore its depth would forever carry the weight of their nightmares. The air outside the gates was crisp, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere within the devil's playground. Mark, Sarah, and Jake exchanged bewildered glances, struggling to comprehend the reality of their escape. The once sinister amusement park now stood silent and motionless, as if the malevolent force had never existed. As they distanced themselves from the cursed grounds, a faint whisper lingered in the wind, carrying fragments of the tormented laughter they had endured. The trio, still reeling from the ordeal, stumbled towards the safety of the moonlit night, the haunting memories of the carnival of the damned etched into their minds. Days turned into sleepless nights as they tried to rationalize their harrowing experience. The devil's playground had left an indelible mark on their souls, a dark stain that refused to fade. They questioned whether it had all been a shared hallucination, a nightmare born from the eerie ambience of the abandoned. But the scars were real. The nightmares that plagued their sleep, the phantom echoes of demonic laughter that resonated in their minds. The trio struggled to convince themselves that they had truly escaped the clutches of the supernatural, yet the chilling reality clung to them like a persistent shadow. In the weeks that followed, Mark, Sarah, and Jake found solace in each other's company. They shared trauma binding them together. The whispers of the devil's playground lingered on the edge of their consciousness, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the known and the supernatural. As the time passed, the trio vowed never to speak of the horrors they had witnessed, fearing that even acknowledging the devil's playground could invite its malevolence back into their lives. They went their separate ways, attempting to resume normalcy, but the ghostly laughter and spectral shadows haunted them, a reminder that some nightmares were too potent to be left behind. Years passed, and life moved on for Mark, Sarah, and Jake. Yet, on the anniversary of that fateful night, an invisible force drew them back to the outskirts of the abandoned amusement park. The memories, long suppressed, resurfaced, pulling them towards the rusted gates like moths to an otherworldly flame. The devil's playground stood unchanged, frozen in time, a silent witness to the horrors that had transpired within its forsaken grounds. As the trio cautiously approached, the air thickened with an otherworldly tension. The grates swung open with an eerie creak, inviting them back into the carnival of the damned. The shadows stirred, and the distant echoes of demonic laughter reverberated through the air. Mark, Sarah, and Jake found themselves entangled once more in the malevolent grip of the devil's playground, forever bound to the haunted memories of that accursed night. The carnival of nightmares had claimed them, and as the gates closed behind them, the amusement park embraced its newfound victims with a sinister glee, ensuring that the echoes of their screams would resonate through the desolate grounds for eternity.